How could a temple exist more than 6,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza and even older than Stonehenge? On a quiet hill in southeastern Turkey lies a place that has turned our understanding of history on its head. Its name is Göbekli Tepe, and it has been called the world's first temple. Dating back to around 9600 BCE, this site is over 11,000 years old. To put that into perspective, when Göbekli Tepe was built, humans had not yet invented the wheel, domesticated animals like horses, or developed writing systems. Civilizations as we know them did not exist. Yet here stands a vast stone complex, with towering T-shaped pillars carved with intricate symbols and animals, arranged in circles that seem designed for rituals or worship. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe in the 1990s shocked archaeologists because it overturned a long-held belief that complex societies, cities, and agriculture had to exist before monumental religious structures could be built. But Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. Perhaps it was the need for spiritual gathering places that pushed humans to settle, farm, and eventually create civilization itself. This mystery has left researchers asking, who were the people capable of building such a site so early in human history? What tools did they use, and what beliefs drove them to carve massive stones weighing tons, long before the age of cities and kings? To understand this enigma, we first need to journey back in time, to the land and age where Göbekli Tepe was born. To understand Göbekli Tepe, we must first step into a world that seems almost unimaginable today. The time is around 9600 BCE, more than 11,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. Great glaciers were retreating, climates were stabilizing, and the Fertile Crescent, stretching across the Middle East, was becoming one of the most hospitable regions on Earth. Göbekli Tepe lies on a hilltop about 15 kilometers northeast of the modern Turkish city of Şanlıurfa. The surrounding region was once dotted with wild wheat, barley, and herds of gazelles, aurochs, and wild boar. This landscape provided an abundance of resources for the hunter-gatherer communities of the time. They had not yet become full farmers, but they were experimenting with harvesting wild grains, gradually shifting towards settled life. What makes this period extraordinary is that society was still in its infancy. There were no permanent cities, no writing, no wheels, and no domesticated animals to help with heavy labor. Yet in this landscape of small mobile bands of hunters and foragers, something remarkable happened. People began to gather at Göbekli Tepe and carve into stone. It's important to remember that this was not a random village shrine. Archaeologists found no evidence of ordinary dwellings, hearths, or daily living at the site. Göbekli Tepe was something else entirely, a sacred place, deliberately built atop a barren hill, visible from miles around. Its elevated position suggests that it was meant to be approached, perhaps even revered, by groups converging from across the plains below. The surrounding region, the northern edge of the Fertile Crescent, would later become the birthplace of agriculture and some of the world's first true civilizations. But Göbekli Tepe came first, hinting that spirituality and communal rituals may have been the spark that ignited humanity's long journey towards civilization. And so the question emerges, what exactly was built here on this hill, and why has it left scholars in awe for decades? When archaeologists first began excavating Göbekli Tepe in the 1990s, they uncovered something that defied expectations. Beneath layers of soil and stone lay vast circular enclosures, each built with towering limestone pillars in the shape of a T. Some of these megaliths rose more than 5 meters tall and weighed up to 20 tons. They had been carefully carved, transported, and set upright by people who had no wheels, no metal tools, and no draft animals to help them. But what truly captured the imagination were the carvings. The surfaces of the pillars were alive with intricate reliefs of animals, fierce lions, coiling snakes, wild boars, vultures, scorpions, and foxes. Some stones also carried abstract symbols, half-moons, hands, and geometric patterns that remain undeciphered. These images may have held deep ritual meanings, perhaps tied to myths, ancestor worship, or shamanic visions. The arrangement of the stones adds to the mystery. The pillars were not placed randomly, but in circular formations with two massive central monoliths facing one another. Many researchers believe these central stones may represent deities, spirits, or ancestors, while the surrounding pillars formed a sacred space around them. In effect, Göbekli Tepe may have been the first temple in human history, and yet the most puzzling aspect is who built it. At this time in history, people were still hunter-gatherers. They lived in small mobile groups, surviving off wild plants and animals. Conventional wisdom held that such societies lacked the organization, resources, and permanence to construct massive stone monuments. Yet Göbekli Tepe proves otherwise. This contradiction has led to one of the greatest debates in archaeology. Was Göbekli Tepe built by scattered tribes who came together seasonally for rituals? Or did it spark the very first steps toward a settled society, agriculture, and organized religion? What we know for certain is this: Göbekli Tepe was not a place for ordinary daily life. There are no signs of houses, cooking fires, or burials. Instead, it appears to have been a site of gathering and ceremony, a stage where humanity's first large-scale spiritual expressions took shape. But who were these people who carved stone into sacred symbols? And what role did Göbekli Tepe play in their daily lives? To imagine the people of Göbekli Tepe, we must leave behind the idea of cities, kings, and palaces. These builders were not part of a mighty empire. They were nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, chasing herds of gazelles and wild cattle, and foraging for berries, nuts, and wild grains. Life was harsh, uncertain, and deeply dependent on the rhythms of nature. And yet, something extraordinary united them. Evidence suggests that groups from across the surrounding plains came together at Göbekli Tepe. They may have travelled long distances, bringing stone, food, and labour to participate in shared rituals. Archaeologists have uncovered vast amounts of animal bones at the site: gazelle, aurochs, and wild boar, indicating large-scale feasting. Imagine hundreds of people gathering on the hillside, fires burning in the night, the sound of drums or chants rising as they feasted and worshipped beneath the looming pillars. What kind of rituals took place here? The animal carvings might hold the answer. Some scholars believe the images were linked to mythic stories or seasonal cycles, with vultures perhaps symbolizing death and rebirth, while lions and boars represented strength and protection. Others think Göbekli Tepe was a place where shamans entered trance-like states, connecting the living with spirits or ancestors. What makes this especially fascinating is the role of religion in shaping society. For centuries, archaeologists assumed that agriculture came first. People settled down, grew food, and only then had the time and resources to build temples. But Göbekli Tepe suggests the reverse, that the desire for sacred gathering places may have driven people to cooperate, settle, and eventually invent farming to sustain these large assemblies. In this sense, Göbekli Tepe was more than a temple. It was a crucible where human community, belief, and cooperation were forged. Daily survival may have still revolved around hunting and foraging, but at Göbekli Tepe, life was elevated into something symbolic, spiritual, and eternal. Still, many questions remain. Who organized such gatherings? How were the enormous stones cut and transported without tools of metal or wheels? And why, after centuries of use, was the site deliberately buried under tons of earth? To begin answering these riddles, we turn to science and archaeology, where the story of Göbekli Tepe takes an even more astonishing turn. The modern story of Göbekli Tepe begins in 1994, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited the hilltop outside Şanlıurfa. Local farmers had long known of curious carved stones scattered on the surface, but most assumed they were remnants of a Byzantine cemetery. Schmidt, however, saw something different. When excavations began, the scale of what lay beneath the soil stunned the world. Radiocarbon dating confirmed that the oldest layers of Göbekli Tepe dated back to around 9600 BCE, thousands of years earlier than Stonehenge and the pyramids. The site contained multiple circular enclosures, each with its own arrangement of megaliths. The craftsmanship of the carvings suggested a level of symbolic thinking and artistic ability far more advanced than expected from hunter-gatherers of the era. Archaeologists found no signs of domestic life, no homes, hearths or cemeteries, reinforcing the idea that Göbekli Tepe was a purely ceremonial site. But they did find stone tools used for carving, as well as massive amounts of animal bones, pointing to ritual feasting on a grand scale. This suggested not just spirituality, but also social organization on an unprecedented level. One of the most puzzling aspects of Göbekli Tepe is its deliberate burial. At some point around 8000 BCE, the site was covered with tons of earth and stone, effectively sealing it away for thousands of years. Was this an act of reverence, a way to retire the temple after centuries of use? Or was it a sign of conflict, or perhaps changing spiritual beliefs as people moved fully into farming life? The answer remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that Göbekli Tepe has rewritten history. Before its discovery, scholars believed that organized religion and monumental architecture were products of agricultural societies. But here was a temple that predated farming itself. Klaus Schmidt famously argued that it was not agriculture that created religion, but religion that created agriculture. And so, Göbekli Tepe stands as a challenge to our understanding of civilization's origins. Yet while science has provided many answers, the site has also sparked a wave of alternative and controversial theories that push beyond conventional archaeology. As with any great ancient mystery, Göbekli Tepe has inspired more than archaeology. It has fueled speculation, myths, and controversial theories that stretch far beyond mainstream science. One of the most popular ideas is that Göbekli Tepe is a remnant of a lost civilization, one that possessed advanced knowledge long before the dawn of known history. Writers of alternative history have suggested that the precision of the carvings and the scale of the construction point to skills that hunter-gatherers should not have possessed. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was built by survivors of a forgotten culture that vanished after the last ice age? Others have looked skyward for answers. Some believe the site was an astronomical observatory, with the pillars aligned to stars or constellations. The vulture carvings, for instance, have been linked to celestial symbols, suggesting that the builders might have encoded a kind of prehistoric star map into the stones. Still more imaginative theories claim that Göbekli Tepe could be evidence of contact with extraterrestrial beings, an idea popularized in the same way as theories about the pyramids or Nazca lines. While these ideas have captured the public imagination, most archaeologists remain skeptical. They point out that the stones, though massive, could have been moved using simple methods. Manpower, wooden sledges, ropes, and ramps. The carvings, though striking, are consistent with symbolic and ritual traditions found in other prehistoric art, such as cave paintings in Europe. There is no need, they argue, to invoke lost civilizations or aliens when human ingenuity is explanation enough. Still, the persistence of these alternative theories reveals something important. Göbekli Tepe has become more than an archaeological site. It has become a canvas onto which people project their own questions about human origins, forgotten histories, and cosmic mysteries. the fact that so much remains unexplained only adds to its allure. And whether one believes in lost civilizations, star maps, or simply the brilliance of early humans, the significance of Göbekli Tepe cannot be denied. It is not just an ancient ruin, it is a symbol of humanity's earlier steps towards spirituality and society, and its legacy continues to echo into the modern world. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe has reshaped how we think about human history. It is not merely an ancient ruin, it is a turning point, a reminder that our ancestors were capable of far more than we once imagined. For archaeologists, the site forces a reconsideration of civilization's timeline. If temples and organized rituals existed before farming, then perhaps spirituality was not a byproduct of society, but one of its driving forces. Göbekli Tepe suggests that the human need for meaning, community, and shared belief may have been the spark that pushed people to cooperate, settle, and eventually invent agriculture. In this sense, religion and symbolism could be seen as the true foundations of civilization. Culturally, Göbekli Tepe has been hailed as the birthplace of spirituality. Its carvings hint at a worldview where humans, animals, and cosmic forces were intertwined. This vision would later echo through Mesopotamian myth, Egyptian temples, and even modern religions, all of which trace their roots to the Fertile Crescent. Its legacy also lives on in popular imagination. Documentaries, books, and television shows have made Göbekli Tepe a global fascination, often comparing it to Stonehenge or the pyramids. In Turkey, it has become a source of national pride, even appearing on currency and promoted as a symbol of the country's deep historical heritage. But beyond its fame, Göbekli Tepe offers a humbling reminder. Human creativity and cooperation stretch back far further than our textbooks once claimed. Long before kings, empires, or cities, people gathered on a lonely hilltop to carve stone, tell stories, and reach for the divine. Their legacy is not only in the ruins they left behind, but in the very idea of community and belief that still shapes us today. Yet, for all the answers Göbekli Tepe provides, mysteries remain. Who exactly were its builders? What rituals did they perform? And why was the site so carefully buried after centuries of use? These questions keep the enigma alive, ensuring that Göbekli Tepe remains both a scientific treasure and a cultural riddle. As we approach the end of this journey, it's time to reflect on what Göbekli Tepe ultimately means for us and why its secrets still matter in our modern world. Göbekli Tepe stands as one of the greatest enigmas of human history. A temple older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older even than the idea of civilization itself. On a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, our ancestors carved vast stones, raised them into sacred circles, and filled them with symbols of animals, spirits, and mysteries we may never fully decode. Its discovery shattered long-held assumptions. Instead of agriculture giving birth to religion, Göbekli Tepe suggests that belief, the desire to gather, to worship, to connect with something beyond, may have been the first seed of civilization. It is a place where humanity's imagination took physical form in stone, where ritual bound communities together long before writing or cities. And yet, the questions linger. Who were the builders who labored here without tools of metal or wheels? Why did they eventually bury the site, sealing it away for thousands of years? Were they trying to preserve it, or simply abandoning it as their world changed? The truth may never be fully revealed, but perhaps that is part of Göbekli Tepe's power. It invites us to wonder, to look at the stones and carvings, and see not just the work of ancient hands, but the spark of something profoundly human, the search for meaning. The hill of Göbekli Tepe reminds us that civilization did not begin with kings or cities, but with people coming together around shared beliefs. In its silence, it still whispers to us across 12 millennia. And this is just the beginning. Because if one forgotten hill in Turkey could rewrite history, what other mysteries still lie hidden beneath the earth? In our next journey, we will explore another enigma from the dawn of civilization, the lost city of Çatalhöyük, one of the world's earliest urban settlements. If you've enjoyed this story of humanity's oldest temple, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so together we can keep uncovering the secrets of our past.